we can go ahead and start recording. Awesome. So today's webinar is being recorded, and this first part is for all the Tier 2s, the rigorous impact, and the hubs to go over performance measure submission. We are joined by our OAHPMData.net support team, and they will be reviewing the performance measure submission process with each of you in the first part of this webinar. And they'll be happy to ask for questions. And then we're going to do breakouts that will be OPA-led, and these will go into the semi-annual reporting guidance in more detail. So there'll be a breakout for the hubs and a separate breakout for the rigorous impact grantees. So at this time, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Zach Exxon, who will be going over the OAHPM data.
Thank you very much. All right, so I'll be reviewing with everyone how we submit our performance measure data to the OAHPMData.net website. Again, this is for the Tier 2 grantees, both types of Tier 2 grantees. Here is our technical assistance team, our help desk team at OAHPMData.net. So anytime you send us an email to support@OAHPMData.net, this is the team who is intaking those requests, processing them, figuring out how we can resolve your issues as quickly as possible, and then messaging you back to get those issues resolved. We've already talked about webinar logistics. If you have questions, go ahead and type them into the chat, and we will try to address all of them as we go through. Any ones that we don't get to, we can save at the end for some questions and answers at the end of this section. So we'll do a quick overview of the performance measures data submission, what categories and buckets each of these things are. We'll talk about the website. We'll talk about the grantee administrator accounts, those users who are kind of in charge of the data submission process there on the website. Any initial setup that needs to be done. This will only be for the rigorous impact grantees. And then we'll take a just brief review of some of the data collection tools, the data submission process. We'll kind of look at those pieces. We'll take a brief moment to see a demo of what that data submission looks like on the website. And then I'll just review some of the other website features, like where you can find all of our tutorials or download resources like the user guide. Those are all available on there. And then finally, the questions and answers. So OAHPMData.net is our online data entry system for reporting your TPP performance measures. It is only one piece of your required reporting. The breakout following this will cover the SAPR stuff, but that does not come into OAHPMData.net. We are only going to be talking about these items here. So if you do have concerns about other pieces, you'll need to go to your project officer or other resources. Our support team can only help with website-related issues for these data points. So the benefits of our online system is that it allows us to have in place these automatic validation checks to make sure all the counts are correct and all the data points line up and are within the required values. And then you'll as well be able to extract or view reports of your data. So if you want to pull that down to put into some kind of visualization, or if you want to take a look at the reports that we currently offer to take a look at kind of the data that has been entered overall. So your reporting schedule for all Tier 2 grantees for grant year 1, the reporting period is the period, September 15th to March 14th, and the submission for that data is due by April 13th. And then the second half of the year, that reporting period 2 submission is that March 15th through August 31st period, with that data due by September 30th. We want to make sure that you're able to get your data in. So it's important that you log into the system and try to get that moving before this exact deadline. Of course, the help desk is very active during that week and weeks leading up to that deadline, but we want to make sure we're able to process all your requests in a timely fashion. And if it turns out that someone else needs a new account or you have a question about a data point, it's much easier for us to resolve that earlier rather than at the submission deadline. Okay, so there are actually 2 types of users that we'll talk about. The first type that both types of tier 2 grantees will need is the grantee administrators. So this would be someone like the project director or designated by the project director to report the grantee level data. You report that data twice during the grant year. And we recommend you have at least 2 users that have this level of access, to enter the data or to check the other person's work. View reports, just make sure all the data that you've entered looks good, as the grantee administrators are responsible for kind of making sure the data has been entered fully and correctly. The other kind of user that we have is an implementing organization user. This is only for the tier 2 rigorous impact grantees, but this would be a user who is only entering section data. So this would be data about implemented programs, the number of participants, their attendance rates. If you have, for example, many different sections or several reporters who will be entering the data, it can be useful to provide them a lower permission type of account, so they only have to worry about entering that section level data, and they won't be able to mess up or do anything with the grantee level. Grantee administrators can enter all types of data, and we'll be able to set this all up. So if that's the only type of account you need, that is perfectly fine. All right. So for our performance measures, for the tier 2 hubs, you only have one level worth of data, which is grantee level. That includes the categories like these data collection fields of prototypes, your engagement, innovation development team questions, training and partners numbers, and then your dissemination efforts data. That's the whole of it. There are several items within each of those categories, and we'll see that when we take a look on the website. But hopefully you're familiar with the performance measures that you'll need to be reporting. They are in the performance measures document that defines each of these. For the rigorous impact tier 2 grantees, we have the 2 levels of data. We still have the grantee level of data, although many of these items are very different. So we talk about sustainability and fidelity, as well as training, engagement, and dissemination efforts. And then we also have the organization level data, and that's going to be your section data. So for any program that you've implemented, you had participants, there was some amount of attendance or dosage, perhaps observations. All of that would go as section level data tied to the implementing organization, which is under your grantee. Even if your grantee itself is the implementing organization, there's still that level of identifying that who is implementing the programming. So some just brief terms review. We won't spend too much time here. A section might be a group of participants who meet one or more times to receive the TPP program model. So for example, might here be a health class at some school that is on some specific program that meets maybe 6 times to complete that particular program. That would be a section. A session would be the individual meeting of that group of participants in that section. And you might observe sessions, and you definitely take attendance if you can to report the overall attendance for the section, the average. All right. Transitioning to the data collection website. The most important thing is that we're going to have some grantee administrator accounts be created on your behalf. So many of you who are attending this webinar should be receiving emails after this webinar has completed, saying that your account has been created and we'd like you to log in and set a new password. Please make sure that you respond to that email and click the link within it within 24 hours in order to make sure your password can be changed and updated. If you don't, we'll ask that you go ahead and go to the website login page itself and use the forgot password function to enter your email address. And it should send you another link, an email with a link in it that will be valid again for just 24 hours. After that, those links expire and you'll need to send a new forgot password. Of course, if you have any questions or issues with this process, if you never get an email in the first place, or you believe that the forgot password link isn't working, just contact the help desk. It's support@oahpmdata.net, and we'd be happy to help work you through all these issues, get your account set up if you didn't already in the first wave, and make sure you have full, command of the parts of the system that you need. The grantee administrators are responsible for maintaining and submitting the grantee level information, and then they're also responsible for maintaining and updating their implementing organizations, which would be the ones that are actually implementing the sections, the program models. So initial setup is mostly only required if you are a tier 2 rigorous impact grantee that will be entering in section level data. This means that you'll need to create some of those implementing organizations in the system, assign the program models that they'll be running, and then perhaps even assign or create users to enter the section data for each of those implementing organizations. If you create a user uh, as an implementing organization user, again, they will only have access to the organizations you give them access to, and they will only be able to enter section level data. They won't be able to do anything with the grantee level data. If you don't need that level of granularity in your users, then don't worry about it. You can have a couple of grantee administrators solve all your data issues. But if you do need that level of so-and-so is going to enter their 10 sections and someone else will enter a different 10 sections, then you can create those users and assign them their particular organizations to help keep that organized. All right, so we're going to step off for a demo in just a second, but we'll just kind of take a look real briefly again at the items here. So for tier 2, the grantee data, we have prototypes, engagement, innovation development, training and partners, and dissemination. We have data validations on those. In fact, that some of those fields are required and that some of those fields have particular allowed value ranges if there's a particular score or other thing. Then separately for the section level data, we'll show you how to kind of create a section, which is to make sure it's like in the right reporting period. You have which program model it is. You give it a state, a setting, and urbanicity. And then you can enter that data about participants, the attendance rates, dosage, the fidelity and quality scores. And also all of those fields also have data validations as well. I'm going to pause my screen share for just a moment while I get the website all set here. Go ahead and share. This one here. All right. So this is our login or landing page for the OAHPMData.net website. This is the test website that I'm going to be logging into. So you might see some weirdly named things. Just know that in order to not be showing like live data, we're logged in here. So things might be named slightly differently, like the names of reporting periods will be more clear on the live website. Here on our welcome page, we frequently post announcements about when data may be due or other issues that have arisen or common problems that need to be resolved that we're finding. So when you log in, make sure to just take a brief look at the welcome page here to see if there are any new messages. Clearly on our test site, we have nothing to report. As a grantee administrator, you'll have access to all these options up here. As a brief note, if you are an organization only user, you're only here to enter section data, then you won't see this grantees link in our navigation bar. You'll only see the organizations link. So let's take a look at where we enter our grantee level data. And we'll get there by clicking the grantees button in our navigation bar here. And we'll get a nice little table of all the grantees we have access to. Now, most of you may only have one, but anyone who was here for a previous cohort with the same email address or is part of multiple grantees or an organization that has multiple grants will find all of the ones their account is associated with listed in the table. If you have a lot, you can use the tools to filter through them, but with just a few, we don't really need to filter here. We can see I have several grantees associated with our example account, so we'll just take a brief look at the way the data looks. So for our tier 2 hubs, If you want to come in to the edit section here you can edit who the primary contact should be if the help desk team ever needs to reach out to this grantee. Who should we be reaching out to first? We have lots of users. Maybe there's 4 users for your grantee, but you have one in particular who we should probably contact first. You can update this information here. Next, we'll look at the grantee level data. So for the tier 2 hub, we only have grantee level data. So we'll just click the data button here and we'll see that at the top, we can select our reporting period. And then we have several tabs which have the different categories containing these questions. So you'll see all of them laid out from top to bottom. Some of them have automatic total fields in order to help you out, make sure you have your correct numbers that you're looking for. And questions that have a asterisk at the end are required. They cannot be left blank. So you'll want to make sure that you enter something into those fields. If you try to save a report that is incomplete, as in it's missing some of the required fields or it has some other violation, it will produce an error. You'll have some red text here at the top of the screen. And when you go to find that field later, you will see, since I have no data in here, it's got lots of errors here, but it'll let you know that this field is required or what other issue may have arisen. So that's what our tier 2 hub data looks like. We'll go ahead and head back to our grantee list, and we'll take a look at the tier 2 rigorous impact grantee level data by clicking that data button. And we'll see here we have slightly different tabs, much the same setup. You can read through the questions, which are all part of the performance measures, enter the required values, and save. There is no formal submit button. Once you save your data, you can come back to change it anytime until the end of the reporting period closes, which should be on that deadline. Typically, if there are still some people resolving data issues, we're able to open up the reporting period for editing, but there's no formal submit button. You can change it up until the point where the deadline and the reporting period closes. So before I continue, I want to know if there are any big questions out there that need to be resolved. I don't know if there have been any questions that have popped up in the chat so far.
No questions in the chat so far.
Wonderful.
Hi, Zach. This is Tatiana at ETR. I apologize if you mentioned this, but in terms of getting emails about setting up grantee administrator accounts, is it true that those are yet to come or have they already been sent out?
Yeah, those should go out right after this webinar. We'll work on getting those sent out. And those are the ones that we ask you to check within 24 hours to click that link and set up your first password, or else you'll need to come back here and use the forgot password thing on the login page, etc.
Okay, thanks so much.
Wonderful. All right. The last thing that we'll kind of take a look at in terms of data submission is we're going to take a look at the process to get set up for that section data submission once you get going in actually running programs for the rigorous impact. So for that, we're going to click the organizations button, and we'll need to create an organization. Here you can see I already have one, but if I need a new one, I'm going to add it, and I'm going to go ahead and type out the name of my implementing organization here. Now, even if it's your grantee that's implementing the programming, you can feel free to just put your grantee name in this line, but you'll still need to create the organization in order to enter the section data for it. So once we've created our organization, we can see we have several options here. We can obviously edit it. The next thing we'll need to do is go to the program models section here and select the program models that we're going to be including, that we're actually running as the sections. So when you go to add program model, the list of approved program models for your cohort and tier will appear. And if you see you're doing one that is not on that list, please contact the support desk and also CC your project officer. We'll make sure we get that approval and then added to the website as soon as possible for you to select if for some reason you don't see an option you think you should have. Again, you will need to set up this as part of the required setup to enter section level data. You'll assign those program models for each organization that you create. That way, if one organization is only supposed to be doing one program model, you won't be able to accidentally add section data for a different one in that way. 2 more places. The first one's going to be users. Here, if you need just an organization level user, someone who only needs to enter section level data for this one organization, is where you would add them as a user. If they already have an account on the website, once you enter their email address, it'll just add it. If they do not already have an account on the website, when you add their email address and click save, it'll ask you for some more information, like just a name and a phone number, and it will create an account for them. It will then send them a new account email, just like you should be receiving later today. I would definitely recommend you contact those people directly and let them know to expect that email in case they need to check their junk folder. And they'll want to log in and reset their password, all that good stuff, like I just talked about. For record keeping, if you want to add your own account to the list as a grantee administrator, you can. This is not necessary. You'll still be able to edit section data without adding yourself to the list. But if you want to have this kind of as a list of those who are supposed to be responsible for this organization's data, that can be a good way for record keeping. Lastly, we'll take a look at the actual sections. So we've created an organization. We've assigned program models to that organization, and maybe we've selected one or more users. We'll click our sections button here. We'll select our reporting period and our program model. And then we'll be able to add a section for that grouping. So we have one here, but if we went to add a new one, we'll see that we need to provide a name, a state, a setting, and an urbanicity. That combination will kind of define what our section is. And then we will see it appear on our list here once we save it. Lastly, in order to edit your section data and actually enter it, you'll come in here and you'll see here's where you can enter your youth participant totals, as well as how the breakdown by reach is. So you'll see each of these reach by categories need to equal the total. And there are lots of those categories for this cohort. As well, if your section included any caregivers or professionals as the direct participants in that section. And then finally, things like your dosage, which is your average attendance, and fidelity and quality, number of sessions planned, completed, and observed, as well as if the sessions were observed, what was the quality score that they obtained. That covers our grantee data entry and our section data entry for the OAHPMData.net website. There are a few other little things here that I'll take you around, but if you do have any questions about those data entry pieces, please let me know. I know you'll be talking more about this stuff and the actual program models and things later. So I'll keep walking through here. We'll go to the resources section by clicking the resources button in the navigation bar. We'll give that a moment as the test website works itself to get me there. Here, where you should find is a folder that will contain here we go. And it will look slightly different, the names of these folders here, but you'll be able to select a folder that is clearly labeled that will let you know where the user guide is, as well as the data collection tools. So that'll include the, mostly for the rigorous impact grantees, the fidelity monitoring form that grantee directors need to fill out each 6 months for your grantee level data, as well as the session observation form, the scoring form that you'll need when you observe a session to give it a quality score, as well as a final resource of an attendance tracker That is an Excel worksheet that we provide that can help you run some of those numbers if you don't do your attendance in any other way. It helps track demographics and percentages of attendance rates for easier reporting your section level data. If you want to get an extract of all the data that you have input so far, including grantee and organization level section data, you can do so by extracting the TPP 2023 data. It will give you a zip file with several CSV comma separated values files that will contain, an amalgamation of all the data that you've entered, as well as some things that look more like lookup tables or kind of give less information, but like list the program models that you're implementing, data like that. The imports section is currently only for section level data. So if you have something like 100 sections worth of data to report, and you're feeling like you're dreading the idea of having to enter it manually by clicking through each of the data entry pages, you are able to create a CSV file and upload it. The template and required validation checks and restrictions on that CSV file are going to be in the user guide and available for download. So you can grab that template and that instruction set, and you should be able to use that to upload if you have many, many sections worth of data. There's like 120 columns since there are 120 fields for each of the sections. So sometimes it can be helpful to use that function if you have a lot of section level data. Lastly, there are reports available in the system for TP 2023, and you will be able to view your grantee level data that you've entered, as well if you enter any section level data. There are several different breakdowns, smaller tables of what that data that you've entered is, that you can aggregate or move around in a table, or even just export those smaller pieces of data instead of all of your extracts. You can hone in on something particular like the reach or the dosage and just download that table as a single file instead of all of the files. The final feature of our website that we have here is going to be our tutorials page. And that's actually going to bring us straight to our playlist that we have on YouTube. It contains recordings of all of the webinars that we've done recently, as well as several tutorial videos that, while outdated, still contain some useful and accurate information about how to upload things or save section data, getting ready for section data entry, etc. That pretty much covers everything that I needed to cover for our demo of the OAHPMData.net website. I'm going to stop my sharing here for just a moment to head back to the PowerPoint. We'll take any questions that anyone may have. And depending on how many there are, then I will pass it back over to the wonderful OPA team to do their breakout rooms.
So everyone feel free to put in the chat or come off mute if you have any specific questions that Zach can answer for you.
Here is our contact information. We do have a voice helpline, but it does not get you to a live person any faster because our team is not like a 24/7 staffed help desk. It does get to us about the same speed as an email, but it's just a little harder to read on the fly there. So email is preferred, especially since if you are running into any more complicated issues, sending us a screenshot as well as information about what internet browser you're using, what operating system you are on, and how exactly you clicked through, what actions you took that led to the error. That can really help us and is kind of easier documented within an email rather than in a phone message.
Great. Thank you so much, Zach. So now I'm going to stop recording and then I'm going to open up the breakout rooms, and they should be titled Tier 2 Rigorous Impact and Tier 2 Hubs. So when I open the breakouts, just go ahead and self-select which one you belong to. All right, thank you all.
Sorry,
Oh,
I have one more announcement that I
sure.
apologize, I forgot. So we are conducting some in the next few days here, some usability testing on what are going to be our new dashboards for displaying information on the section level data, as well as the tier 2 rigorous impact grantee data at the moment. So if there are any tier 2 rigorous impact grantees users, anyone in attendance here today who would like to volunteer to be a part of the usability testing, which would involve maybe up to an hour of taking a look at some mockups of what dashboards might display in terms of what, demographic information about sections and the way you might interact with them, to really get an understanding of how these would best be utilized for your own personal use. What do you need to see in order to best run your programs? So if there are any volunteers, please go ahead and feel free to either email us at the support email address with your email address and letting us know, or add your information in chat, and we'll try and pick that up and get to you. Thank you so much.